The Astonishing Miracle of Now on Enlightened Society. Right now is the miracle of all miracles. That should be obvious, but I know that it doesn't feel like that. It's nearly impossible to recognize for most of us. At best, we are lucky to occasionally stumble into that realization over the course of our lives. But even then, we soon forget it. We forget the miracle of all miracles. We perpetually get lost in our immediate environment. And few people in all of human history have been able to consciously evoke this realization. We need a better approach to achieving this capacity. One that is rational and reliable. This is possible. In fact, as I mentioned, it should be obvious. The problem has simply been one of a proper technology. Just like electricity seems impossible and magical for those who are unfamiliar with it, yet it's as simple and obvious as turning on a light switch for those that are familiar with it. The solution is to develop a lifestyle that involves the conscious use of a combination of highly effective tools. This discourse introduces astonishment and gives an overview of the effect of this process, which grows deeper, richer, and fuller over time. Astonishment is a fundamental element of enlightened society, which exists to provide guidance for those seeking to experience and understand the deepest aspects of consciousness and reality. When I say that right now is the miracle of all miracles, I'm not talking about your current situation or your state of affairs in life. And I'm not talking about your opinion or disposition towards things. I'm talking about what's actually going on right now, what you and I are a part of. Beyond the limited state of consciousness of an ordinary 21st century human being, locked within a given culture, society, and history. We have either lost this ability to be astonished as a species, or have never fully developed such an ability. Regardless, the fact that we almost always think that our existence right now is ordinary is akin to being brainwashed. Not like a conspiracy, because almost nobody has ever realized what's going on. We are caught up in a construct, a kind of reality tunnel, which is ultimately unfulfilling. This notion clarifies the reason for the near universal feeling that we are not fulfilling the potential of this precious life and the limited time that we have. Entire lives are slipping by without ever realizing what's going on and what we are a part of to any significant degree. I know that right now seems ordinary, and that reality seems like the only possible one. It's nearly impossible to imagine how it could be otherwise. But in fact, our entire conscious reality is only a tiny slice, a sliver, a fragment of the infinite spectrum of reality. Our ordinary, everyday consciousness is what you get when you filter out most of reality. This is a result of our biological and cultural conditioning. That conditioning acts as a filter that inevitably distorts reality. In some ways, that's desirable because it's predictable and comforting. But it also functions like a restrictive bubble that prevents us from experiencing the broader spectrum of reality. What I'll be introducing is a comprehensive approach to expanding that bubble, to changing it, tuning it, exploring it, and mapping the territory. This process transforms that restrictive bubble into a user interface that allows for novel experiences and deeper insights into reality. Astonishment is the authentic realization of what's going on right now. And it acts as a lens through which to understand and deeply feel reality. What is going on right now is so spectacular that it overwhelms our conscious mind. The body's evolved response is to filter out most of reality in order to maintain some kind of baseline and equilibrium. And after that is filtered through our culture, our ordinary consciousness is what's left. The problem is that we mistake this filtered reality as the only one. But this limited reality is ultimately unfulfilling. We are left empty of authentic meaning and left eternally seeking, hence our current world. I want you to know that reality is astonishing. Really, right now. And we are almost always missing the astonishing miracle. Right now is the miracle of all miracles, and we are missing it. We think this is ordinary. We are lost in our minds and can barely experience the broader reality. We largely come into this world drunk and seek to go out of it drunk, and we are causing mass suffering in the process. We don't realize what's going on, and we don't realize what we are. What we are is far beyond what we usually think. According to modern physics and biology, what we actually are is a manifestation out of a boundless matrix of interacting energy fields. We are localized bodies of awareness within these fields. We sense this tapestry in the form of bodily sensations and conscious experience. We are made up of countless interacting vibrations and waveforms that give rise to all the processes, systems, interchanges, and forms of energy within layers of dimensions in the form of interconnected organisms. These are made of collaborating organ systems, which are made of trillions of living cells that are all connected to the first cell trillions of generations ago. Designed by simple and complex bundles of information, made of emergent mass that is actually all fields of energy and forces, a manifestation of existence itself, all inextricably linked parts of the infinite spectrum of reality. This is fundamental quantum physics. This is modern evolutionary biology, just looked at through a more awe-inspired state of consciousness. This description is a conceptual, linguistic version of what we are, who we are, and why we are right now. However, we are not these words and concepts. We are the things themselves, being right now. That's what this is, and why this is right now. This is a vital distinction that requires a different state of consciousness to recognize, something that very few people realize. We have this precious opportunity to actually experience the broader spectrum of reality, and that experience is absolutely astonishing. Astonishment is the insight into the miracle, and enlightenment is just a shifted equilibrium on the spectrum of consciousness. With our modern human capabilities, we should all be experiencing astonishment regularly, at least once a day. And this regular experience will keep you grounded in authentic context and give you authentic meaning and purpose. This ability requires a different consciousness than the ordinary everyday consciousness that most of us have. The problem is that our common consciousness is incapable of this realization. The biggest barrier to astonishment by far is our own everyday consciousness. And our constant internal mental chatter is one of the easiest ways to spot this level of consciousness. But it goes way deeper into the mechanics of the brain and body. It's a physical limitation. Consciousness is mediated through its physiochemical functioning. Over the course of our lives, we build neural pathways, circuits, and networks that determine the quality of our consciousness. Those networks define us. The networks are very complex and a topic to be discussed at another time. Here we'll stick to simple analogies. These networks are analogous to highways and road systems that have become the default pathways for electrochemical signals. The active neural networks at any given time help determine the quality of consciousness at each moment, and thus our reality. They delimit the conscious experience. One cannot experience a reality beyond that which the active networks allow. Therein lies the heart of the matter. Consciousness, and therefore reality, are not fixed entities. They are always fluctuating, and we barely notice or consider this process, and thus underestimate the importance of it. By mindfully changing the active networks, we can change consciousness, and therefore the reality that we experience. By carefully harnessing this immense power, we can enhance our lives. Let's look at an analogy to help us understand the spectrum of consciousness. Imagine looking through a tiny hole in the wall, where you can only see what's straight in front of you on the other side, because the hole is so narrow. You can only see a small section of what's going on. The edges appear blurry, the light is diffuse, colors are muted, things appear to be two-dimensional. You can't really tell what's going on. This narrow and limited vision is exactly like our common consciousness. This narrow reality is our entire reality. It's all that we know. It's who we are. We can't experience reality beyond that. Now imagine a much larger whole that allows you to see far more, both in quantity and quality. Vision is sharp, objects are well lighted, they have vibrant colors, they're in 3 dimensions, events take place with plenty of context, and so on. The size of the hole that you look through determines your reality. It's a physical limitation. A small hole makes astonishment impossible. The larger the hole, the more conscious experience. We can only change our consciousness by changing the size of the hole that we look through. Expanding the hole allows us to experience more. The ultimate goal is to expand the tiny hole in the wall from something you look through into something that's so big that you can walk through it, where you become a real person, a true author of your life. So to change consciousness, we actually have to build a new neural network in which to experience the world. And we need to change which pathways are the default pathways. These new pathways reposition your baseline consciousness. They move it to a new position on the spectrum of consciousness. They shift it towards a wider end of the spectrum, a position that allows for profound astonishment at any moment you choose to notice. This is a vital concept. The capacity to consciously evoke astonishment is the most powerful ability that can possibly be achieved. Nothing else can ever compare. You have this potential, just like everyone else. In fact, it's your destiny to achieve this. It's the purpose of life. It's the purpose of existence. It's where authentic meaning is found. The task, then, is to change your consciousness on a physical level so that realizing the miracle is obvious. This is just an introduction to the process of transformation. In the beginning stages, astonishment can be evoked with the help of many different tools. These tools help to change our neurochemistry temporarily. This allows us to have different perspectives and to realize what else is possible. Most tools are sensory-based. It's all about exploring the senses, because they are the bridge between the internal world and the external world. And this interface is the key to the doors of perception and who we are. The tools also provide a reprieve from ordinary consciousness, exemplified by the constant mental chatter inside our skulls. What we want to avoid is a dependence on any one particular tool. Combining multiple tools is often the most effective use of them. The key to expanding consciousness is our active participation. Let's briefly touch upon the different categories of tools. There are many different types of tools, countless in fact. We'll begin with the low-hanging fruit. These are the most important tools in our everyday experiences because they form the framework of our conscious experience. But they are so obvious that we commonly overlook them. We can use tools like simply noticing more as fundamental elements of consciousness exploration. Notice as much as possible. Try to be mindful more, especially at the most appropriate times, like when stressed or when handling a knife, but also when talking with others or when looking at the stars or when you feel bored. Mindfully noticing is an active process. It requires effort. And sometimes it's more difficult to be mindful than others, such as when you're tired or angry, for example. And that's why it's important to prevent these states before they occur. Feeling is the next most important category. It's another central hub of experience. We don't feel enough. In fact, we tend to avoid feeling. A wise man once said about society that if we could feel what we are doing, we would stop doing it. Try to feel more. Feel anything and everything more. Feel with intention and mindfulness. Feel emotions when they arise. Feel love. Feel anger. Feel joy, sadness, embarrassment, hurt, empathy, connections with others. Move towards feeling rather than away from it. Don't judge yourself for your feelings. Just feel them. Feel temperature. Feel the sun. Feel the warmth. Feel the cold. Feel the softness and hardness of objects. Touch plants. Feel their leaves and flowers. Feel their textures. Notice all the differences. Feel your body. Touch your body parts. Feel the processes like breathing and your heart beating. Explore your feelings. We cannot feel enough. Another fundamental tool is being active. Whether simply walking in a park, or stretching, or breathing, or exercising. I've developed something I call intentional exercise that I want to share. This is a mix of yoga, meditation, weightlifting, mindfulness, sound therapy, etc. This is movement done with closed eyes in a gym, at home, in a park. You can use a bench or rubber ball or a yoga mat or just lay on the ground. The goal is to eventually move every body part slowly and consciously, and especially focus on full effective breathing, even more than the workout itself. This is accomplished by moving each body part in slow rhythms and in various patterns, where each session is your own unique creation. This can be done with or without small weights, like dumbbells or on a machine. It's great with or without music, especially soothing sounds. Intentional movement of all kinds is beneficial and pleasurable, and deeply relaxing and invigorating. You can do some form of this anywhere and anytime. Continuing on with other fundamental categories. Listening to sounds of all kinds is one of the most effective tools. Music is easily one of the best tools ever invented for consciousness expansion. It can be used in nearly any situation, especially when using just one earbud. This allows for mindfulness of both internal and external reality. I recommend thoughtful, artistic, poetic, and creative music. The longer the songs, the better. I recommend inspiring music, instrumental music, and ambient music. I use a lot of Sybient, a lot of Enya, Dave Matthews, The Grateful Dead, Beethoven, and on and on. Natural sounds are also fantastic. Listen to the rain, the wind through the trees, nature sounds like birds and other animals, or recordings of any of them. Listen to chanting, various bells and gongs and sound therapies. You can easily find this stuff online. Or just mindfully listen to city noise on a bus or while walking. And of course, listen to silence when you can. Try listening with your eyes closed for a deeper experience. Notice the transient nature of sound, as it arises from a field of interacting waveforms, and then falls back into the field again. A fantastic metaphor for our existence. Vision is another great tool when used mindfully. Try to really notice what you see. Spend extra time to look. Really notice the colors of things, the contrasts of light. Notice depth and distance. Notice patterns. Notice the shapes of nature and objects and how they relate to each other. Notice what things are made of. Notice how the materials differ. Really look at the elements of photography and cinematography mindfully. Use computer-generated images and visualizations. Notice how things change. Consider where it comes from, what the materials are, what elements make it up. Notice the space between objects. That's actually not empty. It's filled with energy and forces and fields that are just not visible to our eyes. Material reality appears static and concrete, but all matter and mass is actually sustained and flowing energy fields in the slow process of change. Try to notice the impermanence and interconnectedness of what you see. Scents and aromas are another excellent tool. Smell as often as possible. It's such a wonderful sense. Go out of your way to smell flowers and herbs. Go to a rose garden or a plant store. Notice all the ways that the earth smells. Smell the rain in different environments. Use essential oils and herbs and anything else. Learning is another tremendous consciousness expander. Can't say enough about this. This path is one of lifelong learning. Read or listen to books when you can't as often as possible. The limits of your understanding and language are the limits of your consciousness and reality. I recommend learning about physics and biology as fundamental knowledge bases, especially things like quantum physics and astrophysics and botany and evolution, and especially from a source that is an expert, but one that is not confined by the dogma of their discipline. Make use of your library. Most books can now be borrowed online in ebook and audiobook form. Also, check out the Teaching Company's Great Courses series at your local library. This is like going to the best teachers at the best universities in the world, only without all the distractions. Another tool for expanding consciousness is being creative, whether it be writing or making music or being artistic or just messing around. Spend prolonged times on artistic projects and give them to people who will appreciate them. Creating things is a wonderful way to expand consciousness. Consciously communicating with others is an easy way to change consciousness. Try just listening to others. Ask them questions about what they are saying. Ask them how they feel more, what they care about. Try to understand them without being attached to the topics. Explicitly think about things. Concentrate on ideas. Imagine what's possible. Use imagination as a tool for what's possible. This is distinct from dwelling on past events or daydreaming about what you can buy, for example. Take time to just sit and think. Allow valuable thoughts to stay. Contemplate them, and then allow them to fall away. Any form of meditation is valuable. Meditation is the quintessential consciousness expander. It's one of the big ones. But unfortunately, it's been historically wrapped up in religion and dogma, but not now and not here. Meditation should become a way of life, and eventually the default mode of consciousness. Sitting meditation is what most people think of, but this is actually an advanced form of meditation. I recommend guided meditations or movement meditations like yoga. Meditation can be as simple as mindfully doing whatever you normally do. taking a break at work, standing in a line, walking in a park, or driving in a car. But it's best as its own activity, just sitting silently alone with your eyes closed, and just more aware of anything and everything. Then you can add all sorts of considerations to that, like location, going to a forest or by a river or a rose garden. You can add sounds like singing bells or instrumental music. You can add aromas. This can be done with eyes open while looking at nature or the sunset or the stars in the Milky Way. You can add movement like intentional exercise or walking. Try to schedule in time that works well for you, like during your lunch break. 15 minutes to 30 minutes is always refreshing. Experiment and explore in this realm. Lastly, we come to what we put in our bodies. What we eat or don't eat has the biggest effect on our minds and bodies. If we want to feel moody and lethargic, eat processed food mainly. If you want to feel alive, eat healthy foods. Cook real food. Prepare it. Spend time with it mindfully. Real food is primarily plants. Plants are central to a healthy lifestyle and a foundation for a higher consciousness. When you eat, try to occasionally close your eyes and pay attention to the flavors and textures. You can also think about where the food came from. Experiment with herbs of all kinds. This is key, and it can't be underestimated. Exploring the spectrum of consciousness can be done at many speeds, and we can adjust the speed with what we put into our bodies. Meditation is a slow speed. Coffee is a moderate speed. Alcohol is a fast speed. And there are also supersonic and slow motion speeds as well. Plants can be used to directly affect consciousness. Explore all the different sensations that they offer. One important general piece of advice that applies to all these things is that the more intense the experience, the less often it should be used. And the more subtle the experience, the more often it can be used. A general rule of thumb is, if it's more intense than a cup of coffee, use it no more than once a week. Sensory overload and sensory deprivation are the most powerful tools, and should be used very carefully and less often. Meditation is very subtle and should be used every day. Things like coffee are mildly intense and should be used maybe twice a week. If you feel a need to do something, you're already doing it too much. Really, all this is obvious if you just pay attention to your body, and less to what the people around you are doing. For those that have access to legal cannabis, mindful use of concentrates once a week is ideal. I have a thorough guide called A Sacred Odyssey, Cannabis Ceremony, that you may find helpful. As we wrap up this section, make sure to notice and participate in all these things more often, and notice yourself noticing them and appreciating them. Exploring all these tools is the first step and also the foundation of a higher consciousness. You are likely already doing some of this, and this discourse elaborates on the varieties and stresses the importance of them. Change your consciousness by finding and exploring tools that work well for you. Search online for suggestions and relevant groups who are also interested in these topics. All tools have unique advantages and limitations and offer different experiences. Even drinking a glass of water or breathing differently can have profound effects for advanced people. What is most important, however, is developing the ability to notice the changes in your experience. It helps to think about these insights and experiences and to write them down and refer to them. These experiences will build on each other and increasingly have a bigger impact on your conscious experience over time, and will eventually give you insights into the miracle and allow for astonishment to emerge. As valuable as all these tools are, we can't rely solely on them in the long term because the experiences and insights eventually fade. We use these tools to build a new internal infrastructure so that we can evoke astonishment manually. We've arrived at perhaps the most important tool. This is a linguistic tool and a conceptual approach to experiential reality. We're going to take a look at what's going on right now. Here we use words and concepts as pointers to the experiential domain, whereas we mainly live in the conceptual domain, and words remain just symbols. The goal is to move beyond the internal dialogue and feel existence, what's actually going on. Feel that reality is more than the concepts and constant mental chatter in your mind. We want to visualize and realize what we are a part of right now. Keep in mind that astonishment takes effort at first. It's not passive like ordinary reality. Your participation is required. Take a look at everything around you. Notice yourself within that. Notice that it's real. That the real world is not a concept. Breathing is real. Notice that. Your heart beating is real. Touch your heart to verify this. Your blood flowing through your body is real, and the trillions of cells that make up your body are real and active right now. You are being pulled to the ground by a force that is real. The planet is real. The cosmos is real. Your awareness of all these processes are real. And there's an infinite number of other things and processes that are real that we are not currently aware of. Let's notice some of them. Notice the flow of molecules coming in and out of your mouth. Quadrillions of atomic packets that are flowing in and out of you in every breath. At least one molecule from every breath was once also absorbed by every being that has ever lived on this planet. Just one of the countless ways that you are connected to everything. Notice the countless processes going on inside you. Energy is flowing throughout your body in countless forms. Trillions of cells are living, each slightly different, being born, dividing, dying. They are vastly complex beings which are working together at every moment to allow for you, a conscious entity that can learn about its truer self. You are one of countless living beings that have emerged out of nowhere. All of a sudden, here you are. We are constantly changing. Everything is constantly changing, moment to moment, generation to generation. We've shown up on this living rock that's hurtling around the great ball of plasma in space. One of countless sources of light and energy that surround us in the night sky. Nighttime gives us a far clearer picture of our true reality than daytime does, when we are literally blinded by the light. The beautiful blue sky hides the grand majesty of the cosmos, what we are immersed in right now. Try to get out of the city more often to look at the galaxy that has created you. All of this is countless forms of energy that are flowing and combining and changing, what we call atoms and molecules, giving everything a sense of substance. These atoms came from the explosion of massive balls of plasma energy, what we call stars. The stars are the first forms of light to make the cosmos visible. Before this, all was an infinite eternal matrix of energy fields, what Einstein called the zero-point field, a self-sustaining field of energy that forms the basis of everything. This field of vacuum energy materialized into forms that could sustain themselves and become more complex, storing information in its own internal processes, that allow for new and emergent phenomena, energy becomes mass in the form of particles, which form atoms, then molecules, and eventually different types of cells like the plant cell and animal cell and fungal cells, and even more specialized cells like brain cells and heart cells and blood cells. This has changed and reformatted itself over and over and over, countless times, and is giving rise to us, here, now. You are this, right now. I am this. That's why we are here. That's why we exist, right now. You are hearing this from me because our particular types of cells have become so complex that their unified self can work with others to build devices that record and store and transmit ideas using sounds and symbols. All this so that we can tell others about the miracle, that we are the miracle. Right now, this is the miracle. And the realization of this is a very different state of consciousness than when we began this discourse. Here we are, the universe talking to itself in the form of you and me. This is extraordinary. This is not ordinary. It never is, except in our minds, which means that it's almost always ordinary for nearly every human being that has ever lived. We are lost in our minds, lost in the spectrum of consciousness. The miracle that we actually are becomes just another banality. Right now, all these things are still mainly concepts for us. They have yet to become fully real. But we are slowly beginning to realize that, to feel that, to experience that. Unfortunately, we will lose this state of consciousness, because consciousness always changes. It tends to follow the patterns that it's used to, the entrenched neural pathways that it previously encountered, which usually means that it settles into the patterns of the culture and society that you inhabit, which knows very little of this broader reality. Collectively, we haven't been able to feel this and experience it outside of our rational mind. And since almost nobody recognizes this broader, truer, and more real state of consciousness, we have little ability to distinguish it and find it again. Let's try to notice the reality around us as a miracle more often. The fact that there is anything, that we get to realize this, that we are this whole thing, this is us. It only changes forms. And we've been doing this forever. And it's all okay. Notice more. Feel more. Experience all the senses and sensations more. Notice colors more. The sounds more. Feel them. Notice the space. Notice that all of this, including us, is really energy fields interacting with each other. The infinite eternity expressing itself, manifesting itself, is this. It's a miracle. This was just a brief introduction into forthcoming discourses that will elaborate in detail on these points. I've called this last technique an experiential discourse, which is an all-encompassing technique that incorporates the best aspects of many different tools. I've made full versions available for free under the series entitled A Sacred Odyssey, and more will follow. The takeaway message is that astonishment is always available to you. Always. Because everything around you and in you is the miracle, and everything comes from the miracle. The miracle is existence itself. It's now. It's you. It's everything. Your listening to this is the miracle. Me telling you this is the miracle. The solution is the process of transforming your consciousness to recognizing it. The process is just a technology. It's not magical or impossible. Astonishment needs to become the foundation for everyday experience. It needs to become the place that you live from. You don't need to try and remain astonished all the time. What is necessary is the ability to become astonished consciously at any time and anywhere that you choose through a deliberate process. You should be able to peek through the veil every day of your life. It is possible to realize this. In fact, you should be able to. Everyone should. But the realizations are subtle and develop over time, increasing in quantity and quality. Over time, you will build new neural pathways and eventually a new mental framework, like a new root system that is stronger, larger, more efficient, and qualitatively superior than your default neural networks. Please listen to this and other stuff as often as necessary. I look forward to making more to share with you.